Cherokee people inhabited territory in Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina, and as far north as Kentucky. They lived in wigwams in this temperate area that was home to many species of prey that they hunted, including raccoons, rabbits, turkeys, and deer. When they hunted deer, they would don skins and carry antlers to get close enough to kill them with bows or blowguns. Fish were hunted with spears, nets, and even by releasing poison that paralyzed the fish and allowed them to be collected. As well as hunting, they gathered and ate edible roots, cherries, walnuts, and crab apples. All these items were a good supplement to their diet, and many think of these people as hunter-gatherers or noble savages. The Cherokee were farmers. They cultivated pumpkin, beans, tobacco, and 3 types of corn. The Cherokee people connected with the Europeans based on a shared way of life, and through that connection they tried to assimilate. Although giving up their cultural autonomy, it maintained the tribe and allowed what culture they had left to survive in the southeastern United States. The Cherokee lived, avoiding many of the hardships of nomadic tribes thanks to their agrarian lifestyle. With this, they had 1,000 years to grow and flourish before the Europeans arrived. Though their view of the Cherokee were noble savages, the Cherokee had put those years to good use, developing a religion, a social order, and ways of hunting that a European couldn't even dream of. 100 tribes dotted the territory, each with 2 chiefs that kept things together. The white chief bore the title Most Beloved Man. Among the tribe, it was he who would be seen sorting out disputes with a smile of understanding and crafting laws so that there would be no need for disputes in the first place. The second chief is the red chief. In contrast, he is in charge of warfare as well as the game of lacrosse or Little War, and picking out the war woman to accompany war parties of 2 to 100 men. Sometimes called the Most Beloved Woman, she was responsible for cooking for them, offering counsel to those who were war-weary, and deciding which prisoners lived or died. Imagine you lived with these 3 in charge. Imagine your life, or family, or town was run by a gentleman, one who only wanted what was best for the tribe. Now imagine your tribe turned its back on this man. Imagine they looked instead to young men, young warriors, and left their religion behind. This is what happened to the Cherokee when the Europeans arrived. Much like American government, it was the warrior who was at the head. A constitution was crafted when Sequoyah created the Cherokee alphabet single-handedly. The new constitution was almost a copy of that of the United States. One could ask why. Why would they give up their culture? But if they hadn't assimilated so readily, if they had fought, they would not be alive today. However, if they were not the farmers they had developed into, they wouldn't have had as much contact with the Americans, and thus less chance to assimilate. Those who originally settled had no bad blood with the natives, and since they were there to stay, they made an effort to keep on good terms with their neighbors. The Cherokee, in return, decided to integrate into American culture, whether because they knew it was the safest option, or whether they simply wanted to be accepted can only be debated, but the outcome was the same. So several Cherokee owned slaves, setting themselves apart from the African Americans, and often very prosperous, they owned large estates or log cabins. Though the settlers who lived close to the Cherokee were usually hospitable, those passing through saw natives only as a nuisance, and as the cotton industry grew, along with the population, they ran into trouble. The Cherokee people were on prime farmland, proven by their 1,000 years of prosperity. So the country began to turn on those who had tried so desperately to fit in. They fought for the rights of their land against the Supreme Court and won, but they were removed anyways. Before the Europeans arrived, the Cherokee had little interaction with its neighboring tribes in the form of trade or otherwise. Once they developed, their contact with strangers became mentionable, if somewhat disappointing. Once they settled the land, the Cherokee fought alongside the neighboring tribes with the Americans. Not only did they fight alongside other tribes, they fought alongside Andrew Jackson. The Cherokee chief Junaluska saved Andrew Jackson's life when a Creek prisoner lunged toward him with a knife, and Junaluska stuck out his foot, tripping the attacker. Later, during President Jackson's movement to clear the land of natives, the chief pleaded with Jackson personally, only to have him reject the request to stop taking their land. This was, of course, denied, and their Supreme Court victory overturned. When the Indian Removal Act was passed, the Cherokee were among those forced out. Many fled to the hills to save themselves and save their culture, though 1/4 of the Cherokee population died during the Trail of Tears. Before for they'd already lost so much of their culture worth saving. The Cherokee, the farmers of the New World, had many traditions. Imagine now that you're sitting at a fire. Campfires of your family dot the landscape like twinkling stars, and a low voice tells of how the earth was created by a dung beetle rolling the planet into shape, or how the planet is a disk of water held up by ropes at the north, south, east, and west with land floating atop it. To us, it hurts to look back on holidays past and miss the wonder we used to have. Not only was the wonder lost to the Cherokee, but the very things that caused it, because when they assimilated, their beliefs went with it. They were replaced by two Christian-like sects. One worshipped heavenly bodies, animals, and fire, and believed that the planet was created by beings from above, and given to the sun to look after. More similar to Christianity is the second sect. They believed that the world was created by three beings who are always together, which parallels the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, who, like these three beings, are omnipresent. Gone were the stories of their people, and gone was the dancing, or so one would think. Enough of their culture remained that today people are recovering it. Enough was left in the ashes to revive the stories and to revive the dances once they were granted their land back. The eagle tail dance, the war dance, bear dance, beaver hunting dance, and friendship dance are today danced once more by revival groups. It's assurance that our people will keep dancing and keep alive our authentic dances, said Marie Junaluska, tribal council member from Paint Town and one of the founders of the Warriors of the Anakittawa. Today people gather, Cherokee or not, and celebrate during powwows what could have been lost. People dance and sing, and on the powwow for the Trail of Tears they mourn, but they remember, and that is something that can be taken for granted. Though they let some of their culture slip through the cracks, the Cherokee, the original farmers of the United States of America, remain here to this day. Their ancestors pull back together what they had to drop. The Cherokee people did what they had to. They decided, when these strangers arrived, that the best way to live with them, the best way to live at all, was to assimilate with them. If they'd chosen another path, if they had stood up against armed Europeans, it is likely that the world would have lost more than pieces of their culture. We would have lost the Cherokee people, the history and wisdom that today their descendants try and succeed to reestablish would have been lost entirely. The Cherokee did all they could do. They assimilated. In doing so, they did not keep their cultural autonomy, and would have been fools if they had.